Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to my Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Thank you. Welcome to the Party Pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 167. I have Eloy Vera Beltrán. He's from Argentina, and we're going to talk about, yes, Javier Milei. There was a recent article in Reason magazine written by Antonella Marty, who seems to be one of the most vocal critics of Milei, who is from the country. I'm not really sure what motivates Antonella, but we'll find out. And Eloy is going to go over some of these things, and then we're going to talk about what else is going on. How you doing, Eloy?
I'm okay. Thank you, Chris. Hi, everyone who is listening.
Yeah. So how did you get into libertarianism, and what are you doing right now?
I got into libertarianism like maybe 10 years ago. I was pretty small by then. It was a pretty fringe movement. It was mainly through the internet.
Okay, you got into it 10 years ago.
I knew some people from SFL, Students for Liberty, from Europe. After that, I joined SFL Argentina when I was already in college. I was there until last year. I spent 4 years in SFL, and I participated in a number of other projects. Like last year, I did an internship for the Cato Institute. I participated in some outlets, some podcasts. Right now, I'm doing the contributors program at Young Voices, like writing for different journalistic outlets. That's my main thing. If I would have to describe me as anything, it's like a political freelance journalist, writer, that sort of.
Yeah, this article came out in Reason, and it's gotten a lot of attention, and I wanted to address it because I think she's at least trying to make some arguments. I also want to, first of all, mention this tweet that Antonella posted on. This might give us some insights into what she's thinking. And I'm reading the translation because it's initially in Spanish. Antonella has blocked the Fountainhead Forums account, but I can still spy on her with my my personal Twitter account. Cool. Also, if somebody blocks you on Twitter, keep in mind you have to block them back, or they can still see you. But anyway,
no.
On January 8, 1977, the last Argentine military dictatorship kidnapped my grandfather. Missing, he was never heard from again. Memory, Justice, and Truth. 24 de Marzo, or 24 of March. So apparently that's a Remembrance Day. And I just think this is important because, I think Antonella understands how bad dictatorships are. And obviously this is something that probably shaped her views a lot. So if we can maybe gain some understanding here, I thought it was important to mention that post. She puts up a picture, and, I don't know of other things. I know. And maybe this is at least partially an insight as to why, because I know Vija Ruel has been very positive about the military, and she's, of course, the vice president.
Yeah.
But anyway, the article in Reason is called, "Is Javier Milei Making Argentina Great Again?" So she starts by going over his speeches. She says, "I'm less enthusiastic." Okay, the first thing, I see him as a self-obsessed populist with a savor complex who gratifies libertarians by echoing their ideas. He raises taxes, escalates the drug war, restricts social freedoms, threatens his political opponents, and appoints political hacks from previous corrupt administrations to positions of power. Okay, appointed Bullrich as the security minister. We know that's true. And now brings up, that Bullrich has praised Bukele. I don't know if she's engaged in any Bukele tactics. I wouldn't want that either because I believe in due process.
I don't think that she has praised Bukele. I believe her vice presidential candidate, who is the defense minister for Milei, Luis Petri, did praise Bukele.
Okay.
And they want to project that sort of image of small self-promotion moment. But I have a newsletter in Substack I posted about this a couple of weeks ago. Like, not only Bullrich, but a lot of Argentina governors, especially with the drug problem, with the drug cartels, want to project an image of being tough on crime in the same way that Bukele is. But I don't think they have gone the full distance of actually like suspending the rule of law in the way that maybe that was justified. I don't know about the case of El Salvador particularly,
Yes.
but I don't think it got so to a full state of war on crime in the same way it happened to the Salvador gangs.
Well, I guess what I should ask is if a police officer approaches you and you have cocaine or marijuana on you, what's going to happen?
Depends on the quantity. That's sort of a gray area in Argentinian law because technically you can have an amount that is for personal consumption, like the state can penalize you for something you do in your privacy. The thing is, up to a certain amount, they will start to presume it's not for you, it's so much of this particular substance that you are obviously,
Yes.
according to the police, have the intention of
Yeah. Yeah.
commercializing.
Yeah. If
Um,
you, yeah.
it
Yeah.
depends on the particular substance. It highly depends on basically if you are middle class, white, in a safe urban area, you're probably going to be fine, even if they find you with a lot of marijuana. If you are from a poor neighborhood, indigenous, etc., probably you're going to have problems. It's like that in most countries, I suppose. There's a lot of prejudice involved, but it's
Yeah.
not like an official state policy.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems like in South America they are fairly open about if you just have some drugs for yourself, but if you have the amount that you might be distributing, they're a little more. Uh, I had a friend who actually went to jail in Peru because he had a bunch of marijuana. But
Yeah.
anyway, okay, now then she gets down to another point and says that the Minister of Defense, Luis Petri, apparently said that he wanted to considering reinstating a draft, and Vija Ruel also thinks that a good idea. And
That's
uh,
actually not true. What happened is that I don't think she's like purposely misrepresenting this because so many of the media got it wrong. What Petri did is he gave a press conference, and one of the journalists asked unprompted, "Would you consider reinstating the military draft?" And Petri said, like he gave a lot-winded answer that is, we will do anything necessary to procure the security of our nation, blah, blah, blah. But that's not one of the things we're considering right now. Is this sort of very long-winded Trump-like answers where he says a lot of things before actually getting to the point? And that's what I think
yes,
the media sort of understood that he was considering. But
incidentally, I know about the war over the Malvinas a little over 40 years ago with the Britain. But what
yeah.
was the last war for Argentina before that?
Before that,
Would it
like
have been the Triple
formal
Alliance
war,
or
I think the Paraguay War, which was like in the 1860s, but we
yes,
had a bunch of smaller scale conflicts. We participated, the last military dictatorship, in fact, the same that launched the Falklands War was actually very aggressive. Like they sent troops to fight guerrillas, leftist guerrillas in
okay,
Central America. They tried to invade Chile. They launched a coup in Bolivia. So it was a very aggressive and militaristic period in our
yeah.
history.
Were they fighting over little worthless islands way down south? Is that what it was with Chile? Or
Yeah, exactly. We had like a problem over who got sovereignty rights over a
yes,
couple waterways in the Magellan Pass. And they actually did invade. Argentinian troops were for a couple of hours inside Chile, and then we got,
yeah,
the military got a call from the Pope saying, I'm willing to arbitrate between you. You are two Catholic nations. You are both military dictatorships. You
yes,
shouldn't go to war. So if you leave
yeah,
this to me,
yeah. Sometimes the Pope has done that. Okay, so we got that, and Milei's worldview is informed with infused with mysticism and Masonic symbolism. I can, yeah, he does. The alpha refers to himself as an alpha lion,
Yeah,
and hello, I am the lion. I don't know if that's necessarily is that true or not.
like like he thinking of himself literally as a lion or as a beast.
Well,
I
we
don't
often
know.
see the lion. We often see the lion as a symbol in this.
Yeah,
So
it's more symbolic. He's like
yeah,
because there's I mean, he has the crazy hair and everything, and there's a song that got really popular, and he used in every public appearance during his campaign that starts, "Hello everyone, I'm the lion. Uh, I'm here to make you roar," etc. I think this mysticism stuff is you see it mostly with his connection to Judaism. Like he regularly consults a rabbi. He has talked about converting um, to Judaism formally after
yes,
he's very related to Israel. And we in Argentina, particularly, we're a very secular country. We're not used to politicians making uh, a public matter out of their religiosity in a way that I think maybe Americans are more used to. Like
yeah. It's
if,
not
if,
really.
if an Argentinian leader regularly goes to church, that's like a weird level of religiosity for Argentina. I don't think that
Yeah.
way for.
There's a bunch of stuff in here that I don't think is really worth addressing. Now, Milei has turned on former allies. Uh, didn't really. I don't think I'd heard of this guy named Ricardo Lopez Murphy. But anyway, apparently he was called a traitor to the ideas and a scumbag. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, he's like not libertarian, but sort of classical liberal. He was a classical liberal candidate who actually got really close of being president. He came third in the 2003 elections, but by a very
2003.
yeah by a very small margin, like 1 or 2% of the popular vote. He was really close of being president. He was really popular at the time, but the two guys who came in first were Peronist, a right-wing Peronist and a left-wing Peronist, and after that his movement sort of got diluted. He's now in politics again since a couple years back, and he consciously made the choice of not running within Milei's party, but again Milei's party. And one of the accusations Milei has for him is um, like the
Yes.
opposition bought you to run against me to split the vote, so that there wouldn't be one libertarian candidate running.
Well, okay. Maybe that's just sad to see this internal fighting. Although,
Yeah.
but when you're winning, maybe it's easier. And then she also cites Roberto Kaczynowski.
Yeah, he's an economist.
Yeah, and apparently now Diego Giacomini.
Yeah, he was. He's also an economist. He was like Milei's best friend. When Milei
Yes.
got popular, actually, they were the two of them. They did a show together on TV. They wrote books together. After that, it was clear Milei became more popular and started approaching like less from the cultural side and more into the getting into politics and trying to change things from there. Giacomini was always more like a doctrinaire anarchist. He didn't like that, and they sort of had a falling out, a very public falling out. Actually, they both have very strong personalities. It's more of personal drama there, I would say, than any ideological or political
Yes.
disagreement.
Okay. Now the other thing too is she also mentioned these practicing nepotism, like making Karina his general secretary, and I know Karina travels with him quite a bit, and apparently he does call her the boss.
Yeah, his sister.
Yeah, I have to admit they seem like they have a very close relationship. It sounds like they really look out for each other. Although,
Yeah,
considering what I've heard about the circumstances of their upbringing, that doesn't really surprise me.
yeah. I mean, they are a bit weird, or a bit. Their upbringing was definitely unusual. They are very close, and she's like Milei's confidant. You can tell, um, and there's like all of these sorts of memes about speculating how the relationship works and whatever here in Argentina. I
Well,
think it's
well,
just a matter of, obviously, he trusts her a lot, and he's new in politics. Like, he's been in party politics like from 3 years, I think. So
yeah,
obviously, you need people you trust because you don't have that many. You don't have the established apparatus with a lot of
yeah.
bureaucrats and technocrats that the established parties have.
And I know he's never married. Is she never married as well?
I don't know about her. I don't think so.
Okay, so yeah,
There's
and
also a
he,
thing about mysticism there because I think
yeah,
she is into spiritism, tarot cards, reading the future, mediumship, seances, and all that sort of stuff. So that's up. But politicians are a weird bunch, and this one is no different. If you start digging up most of the famous politicians of the world, I don't know, Reagan, FDR, Hitler, I don't know,
yeah.
they
Well,
sort of had this sort of mystical wishy-washy beliefs.
sometimes that can lead to bad decisions, though, and you want to make
Yeah,
sure that you want to know how and why they make their decisions. Just the same way why I brought up Antonella's grandfather. I think that's something that has probably shaped her worldview.
definitely.
We don't. Most of us, if our grandparents, they probably just if or that we may still have them, or if they died, we knew when they died. They didn't just. I don't know what I would do if I had a close family member who just disappeared. Anyway,
Yeah.
and then she starts mentioning some other people, about nepotism. This was an interesting charge
Okay.
too. Milei recently nominated Judge Ariel Lijo to the
Yeah.
Supreme Court, overlooking his role in encouraging a culture of leniency toward corrupt politicians. I don't know anything about Lijo, but then is that?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, she's basically right there. Milei just nominated. There are two vacancies in the Supreme Court. Actually,
yes,
there is one, and one of the judges who is about to retire, or he should. He's about to turn 75, and up to that point, you have to retire if you're an
yeah,
Argentinian Supreme Court judge. One of the nominees is fine. People were making a fuss about him being too conservative and pro-life or whatever, but it's mostly fine. He's a fine constitutionalist. The other is this Ariel Lijo, who is very involved in corruption cases. He sort of represents everything that's wrong with the Argentinian judiciary. Corruption, being too close with politicians, being too
yeah,
willing to use the law, to weaponize the law against civilians or against the opposition, to weaponize the intelligence services, which is also a problem. Yeah, Lijo, I would say, I would hands down call it the most controversial decision Milei has made. Um, Probably because Milei perceives that the current majority, the majority faction in the Supreme Court, is very hostile to him, and he like appointed Lijo because he's related to the other faction that Milei seems as more willing to cooperate with his reforms. But yeah, Lijo is not. I don't like him. You know. He's
yes,
going
even
to make
Carly,
controversial
yeah,
decisions. He's not perfect. He's a politician.
yeah. And then she mentions Daniel Scioli or
Surely, surely,
Secretary of Tourism. Yeah, it says that's a cat refers to her as a caste politician and uh, charges Guillermo Francos, who's the Interior Minister.
interior minister. Yeah,
This is another person who's part of the old cast, I guess, as well of Julian
yeah. I mean,
Andres Obaid. Yeah,
Scioli was the Peronist. He was the governor of my province, Buenos Aires province, for 2 terms, 8 years, and he was the candidate of Peronism in the 2015 election. Um, So yeah, that's his credential. It's like if you heard about Joe Biden appointing Ron DeSantis to a position, it's sort of the thing.
Yeah.
Um, Milei was involved with his campaign, I think, in 2015 as part of the economics consultancy team, and Scioli is sort of related to the more neoliberal, as they call it, faction of the Pernice Party, which was in power in the 90s. And
Yes.
many of the uh, bureaucrats and functionaries who worked in that administration survived sort of residually across Scioli's political clientele, including this guy, Guillermo Franco. So there's a lot of like liberals or neoliberals, as you call them, who were involved with that campaign. And he's sort of also there because he was ambassador in Brazil, and Milei is interested in keeping a cordial relationship with Brazil, which is very tense right now. And Scioli is
Yes.
sort of the intermediary there, so there's a lot of political intrigue going on.
Yeah. Well, despite no matter who's in charge with Brazil, charge of Brazil, you're going to have to try to maintain some kind of good relations with them when you have this long border with them. You know, what I mean, we don't want to fight over the Iguazu Falls. You know,
Exactly. And they're our
you know,
largest trading partner.
yeah. I mean, yeah. So anyway, this is where I think probably if I don't know Antonella, but I suspect we're getting down lower in the article to what she really hates here on gender issues.
Mhm.
And apparently, he will actually use a L to Karina instead of. I don't know if that's true, but he's
There's a
banned.
thing. There's a thing about referring to Karina as a man. That's the thing.
Yes,
In Spanish, as you know, is a gendered language. So
yes,
there's L for men, la for women.
yes,
When you say la jefa, the boss in feminine,
yes.
people understand that you're referring to Christina Kirchner, the left-wing populist who was in power before a couple a
Yeah,
decade before. So there's this joke about people started referring to Karina as El Jefe to differentiate,
yes.
and that's masculine. So I don't know.
I've always wondered why Spanish didn't maybe try to have different nouns like El Gato is cat, but maybe you could have, la gata for a female cat. But
We do
but that,
actually,
yeah,
but that depends. There are a
yeah,
couple nouns which are sort of gender neutral.
yeah,
So especially with those that end with an e, if they
yeah,
end with an o, you usually the same
yes,
way that French will have director and directrice. Sometimes
yeah,
you have that in Spanish, but it largely depends.
yeah. And perro is a dog. Maybe you can make perra for a female dog. It's now she starts to complain about some rules he's put on employees, like outlawed tattoos and painted nails, maintained strict uniform codes for police and military. Female officers are required to wear skirts. Male officers cannot have beards. And it's like, oh, uh, you know, and suddenly, this seems to be her problem. So yeah, I personally don't think any of this is an issue if you have dress codes for your military. But then
Yeah, I don't see it. Like, I don't know if it makes sense, like on a technical level, forcing men to not have beards, but I don't think it's that
yes.
you're living in the military is going to have rules.
Oh yes, yeah, and then
Like you
this
didn't
is
join
something.
the army for bodily
Yeah,
autonomy. I mean,
and this is something that has been brought up numerous places, and it's been refuted numerous times. This 827 million pesos for hormone treatments for transgender stuff. This was a program put in by previous administrations. He had to pay the debt. There's nothing he can do about that. To their
yeah,
credit, Reason at least emphasized that they're pesos. Other outlets tried to say that these that tried to imply that they were American dollars. But
yeah,
anyway,
that's a
uh,
huge difference.
yeah, because the peso in Argentina is about 900 to $1 now, so or something
Yeah,
like that. It's such a yeah, and then of course he's in favor of he doesn't like legal abortion. I personally I don't believe you can get rid of abortion by outlawing it. So, but
yeah, yeah.
that's
I'm pro-choice too, but I know is what he believes. Again, he's religious. I And abortion is a very, I know that it's more like party line
Yeah.
split over there in America. Like Republicans are generally always anti-abortion and Democrats always pro-abortion. Here in Argentina, it's like more, I don't know the word, transversal.
Yes.
Like for every party, some in larger proportion, obviously, but basically every party and every legislative alliance in the Congress split for the issue of abortion. Some had a few deputies who voted in favor and a few who voted against. Uh, it's a contentious topic. The divide is mostly geographic. The least populated provinces are more religious and they're generally pro-life, and the more populated urban or suburban provinces are more pro-choice and progressive in gender issues generally.
I don't know. This is something in here. Apparently, he signed a decree increasing his salary by 48% and then took it back. Is that true or not?
Um, yeah, yeah, that's actually true. The official explanation, I don't know if this is true or did, is that Milei signed a decree raising salaries for the staff, like for the personnel, the administrative staff of one of the branches of government. And actually, there was another decree from a previous administration that ties the salary of the president to like to a given proportion of the salary of other administrative employees. Like saying, for example, the president's salary will equal 20 times the salary of this other public functionary. And
Yeah.
hopefully, when Milei found out about it, he like took it back. I don't know if that's how it happened, but that's what he says.
Now, she also claims, okay, proposed an income tax after getting back from Davos, increase the PAIS tax, imposing a 35% surcharge on foreign currency transactions.
Yeah, that's right. One of the things Milei has been doing is he's um, having to raise some taxes, which of course is not libertarian orthodoxy raising
Yeah.
taxes, but we're in the middle of a fiscal deficit, um, and his main purpose is to correct that gap. Actually, the last government eliminated income tax as a populist measure to try to win
Yes.
by votes, basically during the election.
Yeah.
Now they had to reinstate it because it's one of the main sources of income for the federal government. Um,
Yeah. Well, she's also mentioning raise taxes on gases, imports, including wheat, corn, beef, and flour. Then she finally mentioned he's proposed to privatize 41 public companies, but he can't do it without the approval of the Congress. And she claims that Bitcoin Argentina has criticized him for trying to regulate all aspects of crypto trading.
I
Uh,
don't know.
yeah,
Uh,
from what I've heard, well, at least most Bitcoiners here in America are very enthusiastic about Milei. So,
yeah, probably. I
and
There was a couple of, I don't know about Bitcoin, but I know there was a couple of like very prominent crypto businessmen
yes,
um, from the Ethereum side of the crypto world who were like speculating with Milei's rival Sergio Massa, the left-wing candidate, the Peronist candidate, uh,
yes,
to implant a CBDC, digital central bank currency. Uh, and they have criticized Milei, but I don't know if they are the majority. I don't know about Bitcoin. That may be true. I genuinely don't know.
yeah, and apparently there's new regulations on crypto, which enroll. Yeah, they have to enroll in the registry of virtual asset providers if your transaction in
Yeah, that may be
well, this,
true. I mean, it would be part of this broader policy of trying to raise taxes to match the revenue and solve the deficit, which again is not libertarian orthodoxy, but to me at least is what you gotta do when the state is broke. Like you need to. quickly raise that money.
She claims the chainsaw art idea was also borrowed from Rand Paul. Now, I don't ever remember Rand Paul appearing with the chainsaw, but oh well. So he has, and some people have said, she says, he's not really eliminated these ministries; he's just consolidated them into. So instead of having a bunch of little ones, you have bigger ones. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing is that in Argentina you have what's called public employment stability.
Yes.
You technically can't fire public employees, like it's illegal to fire public employees.
Yeah.
There are some workarounds to do that actually. Milei is like progressively trying to fire what he sees, what I would agree are unnecessary public employees in rounds of thousands or tens of thousands. But yeah, for the most part, what he did at the start was consolidating the ministries. So what was formerly like 20 plus ministries now are 8 ministries with a bunch of secretariats and subsecretariats under them. And over time, he is trying to eliminate or reduce many of the agencies. But yeah, these 8 ministries absorb the functionalities of all the ministries that were eliminated.
Yes. Yeah. So now there isn't really much left, although apparently they did make a purchase of 24 USS F-16 fighter jets. Not really sure if that largest military expenditure in the country's history. I don't know if that was true or not. It doesn't really seem like it would be necessary, but if that's true or not, or
Yeah, I mean, the Argentinian military is very in shambles. Actually, when we got out of the last military dictatorship, one of the consistent policies of pretty much all the democratic governments was dismantling the military industrial complex, which is the reason why the military was so strong, because they had this whole parallel economy and this whole industry that they could use uh, to provide for themselves. Uh, that has meant, unfortunately, that Argentina is very weak militarily, and we have a problems in the border with drug cartels. There are guerrilla groups in Chile, in Paraguay. So one of the things the current government is trying to do is try to replace the equipment that is like 30 years old. That's the case with these airplanes we're purchasing from Denmark, I think. Um, and yeah,
yes,
again,
Denmark.
generally, I would say libertarians here in Argentina have a more, I don't know if hawkish, but a less negative view of military defense stuff than libertarians in America. Because, of course, you come from the perspective of foreign interventions. We come more from the perspective of
Yes.
we need these planes or drug cartels will start pouring
Yeah.
through the border in clandestine planes, and we can detect them, we can take them down. There are actually some foreign
And we also have
origin.
more of an attitude. Sorry, we also have more an attitude. This is for the police. This is for the army. And
Yeah,
they don't do the same jobs. A lot
yeah,
of
totally.
countries, unfortunately, the military does become the de facto police.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that would be a fair criticism of Milei too. Like, um, Defense Minister Petri is
Yeah.
very adamant that the military should get involved in fighting the drug cartels. I don't think that's a good thing, because, as you said, the military is not the police. The civilians shouldn't, even criminals, shouldn't be treated as a foreign enemy. And when you start having tanks patrol the streets, that's very messy. Even supposing everything goes fine in the sense, but what happens in most of these cases is that the military ends up like having this sort of symbiotic relationship with the cartels. That's how the famous gang Los Zetas emerged in Mexico. Like the Mexican military
Yeah.
send their military to fight the cartels, and some of the military officers say, actually, this selling drugs thing is a pretty good business. I will
Yeah,
start fighting for the cartels instead of the military.
that's what happens in tune. What I mean, most American libertarian, 99% of American libertarians just want to legalize everything, which would take a lot of the corruption out and would also drive the price down.
Yes.
Uh, it's it doesn't sound like there's really is any plan to end the war on drugs, as we like to call it. Yeah, the American libertarians are. I mean, because America sticks its nose into everybody's business. I mean, you know, uh, one of Antonella's main. Antonella seems to complain a lot that Milei is a populist. I mean,
Mhm.
this seems to hit kind of at the issue too, because you send me a message saying what the state of the liberty movement was like before 2015, and can you basically kind of re go over again what you talked there, because I think this has been a problem in a lot of libertarian movements.
Yeah, I know the same is true to some extent for America and maybe
Yes,
other countries too. Like libertarians, the liberty movement in general, uh, became very like I would say ivory tower, like very focused on academic stuff, very
yes,
intellectual. That became coded very upper class and sort of they got interested in appealing to a narrow sector of businessmen, establishment politicians, and academia, sort of alienating the possibility of having a mass movement and becoming very comfortable as being a sort of controlled opposition within the establishment. Uh, and Millet adopted a more vulgar style in the original sense of the word
yes,
vulgar, like popular, mass appeal. And I think that's like a practical refutation of the strategy previously had of trying to do this sort of very highbrow fusionism where we sort of libertarians infiltrate the technocratic side of the established parties. And Millet actually said, no, we can build a party of our own. We can have popular appeal. We can appeal to the lower classes. We can appeal to the poor shanty towns. We can have a mass movement of our own without depending on establishment politicians. Of course, after that, the whole issue of alliances, trying to make parliamentary arrangements came in. But for the most part, I think that's an issue. Like he got too meddled into the direct process of representative democracy and party politics, and that's what many people see as a practical refutation of their whole
yes.
career.
And I don't know. I was 18 years old when the Berlin Wall came down. Yeah, none of us ever thought we would still be fighting all these socialists. 35 years later,
Yeah,
it's really it's really demoralizing in a lot of ways, because and the main reason why is because the college professors never changed. The Berlin Wall coming down had no impact on their thinking. They didn't change their minds. In fact, they got more committed to it. They were more determined to. They always say, well, Venezuela is not real socialism. Or it's this is something, and
yeah.
I
Like,
think I
like
think we
before
could say
that,
that. Yeah.
I believe maybe socialism was a very concrete thing you can point at. There's the Soviet Union. That's what you're supporting,
Yes.
and you point in that direction. And there's genocide, famine, mass starvation, crimes against humanity, and
Yes.
now socialism feels like this very diffused thing that Cuba over there, Venezuela, like these countries nobody knows in the first world, you barely ever think about. It's more real for us here in Latin America because we live with the actual left wing governments and the whole socialism for the 21st century
Yeah.
experiment.
And I happen to know a guy. If he goes back to Venezuela, he'll probably be killed. Or at least he'll be arrested. So
Yeah.
he's a good guy, and so yeah, that is unfortunate. And uh, so it is interesting to see how that's turned out. It seems like to me though the appeal to try to change academia didn't work, and now Milei has figured out a way. Let's go out to the mass, and maybe we can get this. But you also have a situation now where the the truck drivers and the plumbers are reading economics books.
You know,
And I don't know how anybody can think that's a bad thing.
I actually believe one of the regarding the populism claim. I think I understand why people say Milei is a populist. If not yet that he's popular. There are some things about how antagonistic his narrative is, how he tries to distinguish between, say, the people, the good people, decent Argentinians, as he called them, who support me, as opposed to the political caste, this elite, this shadowy cabal that opposes me. I get that that has populist undertones. I think there's one journalist who actually said he's playing good cop, bad cop. Like he's the bad cop who has this very antagonistic enemy friend narrative, and then he sends his minister as the good cop, Guillermo Francos that you mentioned. So okay, I'm the one who is willing to negotiate. If you don't want Milei to keep mistreating you, uh, I think that's part of a broader strategy that could evolve in a more populist direction over time. But I don't think it's fully there yet. But regarding this aspect of um, I would say like the more illiberal side of populism, like the more authoritarian side. I, I, I
Yeah,
just don't believe he has the. He's openly said he doesn't want to get infinite re-election, which is a lot to say for a Latin American politician. Um, I think he's willing to work within the constraints of the system. Going through Congress, talking to the opposition. The thing is that the Argentinian system is just very authoritarian from the get-go. The president has a lot of power. It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. So he's using the power he has.
yeah, that's certainly an issue, and often what has been called populism has been used in for very negative things. I don't know, but if things work, but if a weapon works, you can use it for good as well as for bad. The weapon itself is not inherently bad. Just like a gun is not good or bad, or a baseball bat is good or bad.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
So
I do believe there are some idol. I think the best book on populism that was ever written is actually by an Argentinian intellectual, Ernesto Laclau, who was very in favor of populism himself. It's
yes,
called Populist Reason, if people want to search for it. And it basically says populism boiled down to the most basic is this: establishing a friend enemy narrative, the true people against the evil anti people. And that's dangerous. I mean, that there's reason to be concerned about that, because we believe in a liberal democracy. The state shouldn't be involved in your
yeah,
life, and if the state treats you as an enemy or as a subject, both things are wrong and anti-liberty. So there's reason to be worried, but I don't think Milei has gone the full distance yet. He has a very antagonistic
yeah,
narrative, but I don't.
yeah. I think also that some of these people who are, at least are on the outside are libertarians. They're actually what I would call I came up with this term a few days ago. Libertarian managerialists. They still believe that somehow the smart people need to manage things. There's like and you end up you kind of have it in the private businesses too, where you have all these middle managers and all these people like that who are making decisions. You just because we have such an increase nowadays of people who a lot of people who just go to meetings and push papers and that's what their job is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
And
that's part of the what I was talking about when I said libertarianism was, or the liberty movement, to be broader, was very highbrow, very dominated by technocrats and academics, and most of them, I think, aspire to become the economy minister or the finance secretary for an established party government, um, and that didn't happen. Yeah, Milei, just to these people, may come out as very anti-intellectual because he rejects their particular brand of intellectualism. I don't think he's actually
Yes.
anti-intellectual, because he can't stop talking about economics, matrices, mathematics, the Austrian school. To most people, I think he comes as more intellectual than he intends to. And what I mean when I say he's not gone the full distance of being a populist is populists rely on this polarization, like creating a very deep entrenched antagonism in society between those who are with me and those who are against. And I think Milei is only doing that for the political class. And again, it's not so he's willing to extend an olive branch to the enemies. Um, but if you see the map of the last election, it's really surprising how much Milei ended with polarization in Argentina. He has a very cross-party appeal, very cross-sectional. Like he got votes in every age group, in every social class, in every
Yes.
geographical region of Argentina. In that extent, I think he's very anti-populist. That he ended many of the traditional polarizations that have been dividing Argentina over the last few decades.
Yeah, yeah, we've basically gone over that article. I also think that a large motivator in what Antonella published is really she's not happy about his anti-abortion stance. She wants and this is something I got to tell you. She wants women in South America to become like women in this country, and that would be a tragedy for you all down there. The
Yeah, I
way
mean, I am pro-choice too. I'm not happy about the more conservative side of Milei, but I don't know. That's one of the things
yeah,
uh, that you gotta go. Again, he's a politician. I think libertarians are very used to this, are very comfortable in the position of being just a civil society movement and an opposition movement, and you can always take the pedestal and criticize the politicians because you're not in power and they are
yeah,
having to make difficult decisions, which of course is fair because politicians are making difficult decisions and bad decisions most of the time. And when we have a libertarian in power who is also having to deal with uh, situations where he has to compromise, where he's having his personal beliefs mixed in with his political beliefs, and he's having to take sides in situations where there is no perfect solution. Some people have, like, they had the expectation that when we had a libertarian politician, he's going to be perfect and there's going to be no criticism against him. And we have to get used to criticizing Milei as we would criticize any other politician. He just happened to agree with us more than any other politician we had previously.
yes, it's definitely the case. I don't really know. Yeah, it's. I hope though that Argentina, that South America still maintains, a system where families are important, and they're not that way anymore. And I think that's Antonella being an objectivist and being affiliated with the Spanish version of the Atlas Society. It doesn't really shock me that a woman who's an Ayn Rand fan would write an article like this.
Yeah. I
It's
think regarding that about Argentina being more into family values and stuff, I think we're gonna be fine in that respect. Like even in the worst of the left-wing Kirchnerist government, where like progressivism had metastasized over society, it wasn't as bad as the I would say woke movement got in America, because we don't have a lot of the baggage with racial stuff, for example, that America has. But also, I think it's a cultural thing. When I was in America, I noticed that it's a very individualistic society, which is okay. I mean, I like in Iran too. I'm a libertarian, but very hyper individualistic, very atomized because of a lot of things. For example, urban design, we could talk about the other day, um, where it's very easy to spend your life alone in many senses. Like there's the loneliness epidemic among young men. I think that can never happen in Argentina because we're like a Mediterranean culture. We had a lot of Spaniards, a lot of Italians. It's a society where I really can't think a way you can not have any friends here in Argentina or not have a very large family that you get uh, to meet them every once in a while. Like social events are much more ingrained, like the communitarian side uh, in daily life, in a way that I think maybe in America has been lost because of how divided everything is. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, I'm in some ways I'm more confident about you all than I am about America. For that reason alone, and not to mention Buenos Aires was an absolutely beautiful city. There are no cities that look like that in America, where it was still relatively clean. People were on the streets here. You'll just see trash everywhere. You'll see all kinds of things you don't really want to see. It's
Yeah, Buenos Aires is very beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah, it's the Paris of South America, as they call it.
yeah. It's often called Paris. I've heard Paris on steroids, stuff like that. Yes, it's a bit. But I think it. But I also think it reflects an attitude. It's what else? Anything else you want to say about Milei, or what do you think's made it work for Milei? What do you think about the first 4 months we've had now?
I think it's fine until now. Again, I also had many worries about his say populist tendencies. I'm now much more on board with his whole project, not because I doubted his ideology or his intentions. I doubted his political savvy, and over these months, I think he has proven himself able to navigate the very complicated years of Argentinian institutions. Of course, there are a lot of challenges ahead, particularly the Congress and his relation to the governors. Uh, Again, sorry for self promotion, but I think I write about this in my newsletter if people are
Yeah,
interested. But I think uh, up until now, he has shown willingness to use the levers of power that he's been given, which is a lot because this is a very hyper presidentialist country. And he's very conscious of when he needs to negotiate with the opposition. And I think he's much more savvy that people give him credit for.
yeah.
If that's going to prosper over time, we will
Yeah.
see.
One other question I need to ask. Regarding that tweet by Antonella where she says, her grandfather disappeared. How many people back in the 70s? How many people did disappear? How
Okay,
common was that?
that's a very contentious topic. You just like
Yeah,
you just
I've heard it's a
okay.
contentious topic.
I-
Yes,
I- That's one of the things that was very criticized about Milei's position in Remembrance Day, which was a couple days ago.
yes,
The official statistic that came out in 1983, when the dictatorship ended, is around 9,000. It was 8,900 and a few more. That's the number of confirmed people who were disappeared. Like we have the list of
yes,
names. If you start looking uh, for the registries that the dictatorship had, the estimates made by foreign intelligence services like the US, Chile, etc. And when you get down to the concentration camps and the torture facilities that the dictatorship have, you start to realize, okay, or the mass graves, you start to realize, okay, it had to be more than 9,000. Uh, because if you get to a concentration camp and there is room for 600 people, you realize, okay, it's more than 300. Okay, the logistics that the dictatorship um, put in place speak of a number greater than 9,000. The leftist movements have usually estimated around 30,000, which might be way over the mark. But yeah, it's around that between 9 and 30,000. The thing is, usually the right wing, including Milei right now, uses the number 9,000, which the left sees as like a form of denial or genocide denial, like, oh, you give the lower number because you believe it wasn't so bad, you want to minimize the impact the dictatorship had. The left uses the higher estimate, 30,000, and the right says, okay, you are exaggerating. You want to portray this as a dictatorship that was targeted particularly at the left because you want to associate the dictatorship with the right-wing parties. So we don't have an exact number, but it's in that strip,
Yeah.
like between 9 and 30.
And you may or
But
may
the number
never have an exact
you do
number.
mention says a lot about
Yeah.
what side you take in Argentinian politics.
Yeah, and you may never have an exact number, unfortunately, too.
It's very difficult to know. Like the dictatorship took care of destroying every archive that they had before leaving power, and we can make estimates according to seeing the size of the torture camps and whatever. But there was a lot of people. Like we're talking about thousands, 9 or 30.
Yes.
We're talking about a real tragedy. And basically, all people know someone who disappeared. So
Yeah. Did the perpetrators ever get put on trial or anything, or do they still
twice, actually, they
what?
got put on trial twice. They got put on trial in 1985. There's actually a movie about that was nominated for an Oscar, Argentina 1985. Uh, it's in Amazon if you're interested.
And with
Uh,
subtitles, I assume. But yes.
they got in trial. They were sentenced to life in prison. Some of them got lighter sentences, but that trial actually threatened Argentinian democracy because many of the people in the military were, okay, you're now judging the chief commanders of the dictatorship. We come next. So they made attempts to terrorize the government into giving up. So the next government pardoned the military commanders. And once again, in the 2000s, the government once again reopened the trials now that the military was way more weak.
Well, or maybe that's why the people don't trust the military. It's hard to say, but
Yeah. And right now
yes.
there are some trials that are still ongoing, uh, and the I would say the greatest ongoing process is finding the children who were disappeared because what the dictatorship would do is that they would like kidnap a woman and the woman was pregnant, so they would have her deliver the baby. They would take the baby, change the name, and give him to another family. And I think there's about 400 children who have been confirmed as being adopted by a military family, but they were actually children of people who disappeared.
What was the alleged reason usually for just kidnapping these people?
Oh, the dictatorship was very stupid. Like the subversive Marxism was the
Yeah.
official reason why they were fighting against the guerrillas. But they kidnapped a lot of people who were involved with the guerrillas. And as time went on and the dictatorship sort of radicalized into their nationalistic ideology, people, things like having long hair or listening to music in English could get you branded as subversive. And actually, the dictatorship was very decentralized. Some of the commanders actually fought with one another. So the commander in this
Yes.
province maybe hated the commander in this province. So I would kidnap someone who in my jurisdiction. It was very chaotic. That's the real tragedy of
Yeah,
it.
and
That it
and
was very random and very.
and it also looks like this has been a career for Miriam Bregman. She's made her, who ran for president. She's a lawyer who's been looking into some of these cases. That wonderful communist who ran for president, and
Yeah, she's a I mean, that's fine.
yeah,
Like civil rights advocacy, human rights
yeah,
advocacy, fighting to find the children of people who disappeared to clarify the truth. That's okay. I
yeah.
just won't vote for her. She's a communist.
I,
I don't like
I'm
that.
I'm glad to see that the South American communists are still fighting some of these good fights. The American the ones here, they have no interest in fighting these fights anymore. They don't really care. I don't think they care at all about what the military does. It's rather strange. I think 20 years ago they would have, but they don't anymore. They're just in favor of war. It's yeah. Yeah, anything else you want to say before we go? Yeah, it's been great having you on here.
No, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Whenever you want, I'm willing to come again.
Okay.
If people want to know more about Argentina, follow me on Twitter or X. I'm Eloy Vera Beltrán, just like you see here at Eloy Vera Beltrán.
Please buy my novel, Escape from the Village. Check out my Substack, like the video, follow the channel, and thank you very much, Eloy. I'm Chris Baker, and we're out.